Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Cricket Show. I am Rich. We've got a range of topics to talk about tonight. So if you want to get involved in the chat, there's a few messages in there from Colin and Emerson so far. So if you're watching, don't be shy, get involved, put your comments. And Martin's in the background. He'll be, Ryan, no need to change my name. Thank you. But he will be putting some messages up on screen. So tonight we're going to sort of start with the sad passing of Rodney Marsh, Shane Warne, and then we're going to go on to preview England's tour of the West Indies. We've got a bit of chat about Anderson and Broad's omissions. Look at the squad. I was going to say to everybody to give us their 1 to 11s, but they've named a 12 today, so we'll just discuss the 12 they've named. No Matt Parkinson, I'm afraid, in the team. So Ian will probably be off his long run and he won't be very happy about that. And then we'll end the show with some chat on the Women's World Cup, which is taking place in New Zealand at the minute. So tonight, joining me, we have got Ian, we've got Grumpy Neil, and from All the Overs Essex podcast, we've got Terry and Owen. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
So we've got no Rob tonight, who is suffering from COVID. I know he's watching. Get well soon, Rob. And Brandon not with us tonight. So hopefully they'll be back when we do next week's show. So how have we all been? Are we turning at them arms over, Ian? Have you been in the nets?
Yeah, I've been. The cortisone injections in my knee have helped. Yeah, we've been sort of indoor nets for quite a few weeks now, actually, in Lytham. We're netting in Lytham. And my lad's been joining me, so he's been peppering me, so I've got a couple of bruises. He's been netting this morning and been junior coaching, and I've also Saturday mornings, which is why I hot tail to the Fleetwood game from Lytham on Saturday. Bit of a nightmare journey, really, ironically, involved with the Northern Premier League.
You can't be moaning about a nightmare journey to Fleetwood when I've had to drive over 4 hours, 2 Saturdays running to Morecambe and Fleetwood. I'm not having this a nightmare journey.
No, I absolutely accept that, but it took me about an hour, which
amazing,
about 20 minutes. So I was gutted, but yeah.
Anyway, talking about being gutted, obviously the news Friday broke when I got up for work. Obviously, the sad passing of we'll start with Rodney Marsh. I think it's only right because he passed on Friday of a heart attack, age 74. Ian, give me your Rod Marsh thoughts, because look, I remember him, but obviously I'm younger than you. Obviously.
That's quite diplomatically put, but
yeah. Look, I obviously remember him. You can look at the footage on YouTube nowadays. My thoughts, Rod Marsh. I always remember when him and Dennis Lilly. It was the 81 test, wasn't it? When they had the bet on 500 to 1 on England to win, and they won a little bit of money, didn't they? If that wouldn't be happening nowadays, would it, Ian?
No, I think there'd be some kind of inquiry into that kind of thing, and they'd have to declare it. Although they did actually declare it at the time. I mean, he was a wonderful competitor. He was a wonderful wicket-keeper, and as I say, I was quite taken aback by it because of my vintage. But in that 81 series, he became the first Australian, the first wicket-keeper to reach 100 victims in the Ashes series in 81. He was an England selector between 2001 and 2005, so he was involved there. He was chair of the Australian selectors for a few years in the sort of I think 2014 to 2016, if I recall. But yeah, I mean, he had a job of it, keeping to the likes of Thompson and Lilly. Arguably some of the best and quickest pace bowlers that's ever been. But he was a really, really good. He was a really good keeper, and the first keeper to score a century in Tests as well.
Yeah, I was quite taken aback when I read that stat, Neil. He was the first Australian to score a Test match 100. I thought, blimey.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably just before, my sort of era, really. But and I've seen Lee's put about, Marsh instilled nastiness into the. I do remember that of him, that he was an immense competitor. And from some of the stories you've heard this week coming out of like Ian says, with the selection and stuff like that, there was a reason why England tapped into that and bringing him into a selector, because he'd been successful and took that competitive edge into everything that he did. In terms of, again, I've heard this week in terms of the amount of coaches that he came into contact with and developed. So he took what he'd learned in the game and how great he was from that point of view, and just amended himself into other avenues of cricket, which I thought was utterly brilliant, and clearly was very, very well respected throughout the whole of the game, whether it be players, selectors, coaches, everybody involved in the game respected him immensely.
Yeah, I see a clip on I think social media, Owen. I think it was 95 dismissals. Caught Marsh, bowled Lilly, and there was about a 2.5 minute like montage of all the dismissals, and it was great as well. Also, because Richie Benno was commentating on a lot of them, and he was like probably my hero as a commentator. Growing up, Richie, loving him, obviously on BBC, and then he was on Channel 9, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah, Richard's in the first couple of days. I remember playing some sort of computer game from '98, and he was a commentator on that, so that's why it sort of got me into cricket quite a lot. But yeah, unfortunately, Marsh was before my time. But yeah, I do remember like him as a commentator and him as selectors, and just he seemed to have a real cricket brain, like really seen the cricket through and through. And one of these people that I quite liked, that once he had left the game, he became like sort of more of like sort of an elder statesman, and could leave some of that. Not saying the positive side, competitive side behind, but that sort of rivalry, and actually, go and help England. I thought that's a real testament to somebody as a professional cricketer, that they can do that and not bring in some of the stuff they might have done in their playing days.
He seems to me he's sort of your typical in-your-face Aussie.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I do wonder, going back from Lee's comment earlier in the chat, about whether maybe some of the stuff he set in motion left untracked then caused, later what we've seen recently, like Sandpaper Gate and sort of David Warner's, kicking off in stairwells in South Africa. So whether not all of that was positive that left unreined in the Australian team.
So yeah, sad about Rodney Marsh, and then obviously Friday afternoon, I still cannot believe the news that broke in, and I'm still struggling to get my head around it. Then I was just sort of going about my business, and then it comes through that Shane Warne's passed away, 52 years of age, in Thailand of a heart attack, and you think it cannot be real, Terry. That news come through, and it was like a bolt from the blue, and I think sometimes sort of sporting, I'll call him, he's an icon of cricket, and I think even if you're not a cricket fan, you would know who Shane Warne is. Probably a lot of people know him because he was with Liz Hurley, but I think sometimes we think that these sportsmen are indestructible and nothing can break them, and he just proves it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you've got, no one is bulletproof. And I'm still struggling now, and I'm absolutely devastated because Shane Warne is one of my cricketing idols growing up.
No, I think exactly the same. I mean, and I think that his age is particularly poignant, given the fact that 52 is 20, 30 years ago would have been seen as, oh well, that's you were older then, but to be 52 years old in 2022 is no age at all. And that I'm approaching 40, and I'm thinking that's what, 12 years away from me. That for me is just unthinkable. But as you say, such an icon in cricket, and I probably shouldn't admit this on this podcast here, but my whole life I always had a bit of a crush on Shane Warne, and so he was one of the reasons that I kind of paid a bit more attention to cricket. As you know, I'm quite late to the game, But in terms of his personality and what he brought to the game, to the pitch and off as well, his personal life was always very interesting as well. But in terms of, I'll always remember, his performance in I think was it Boxing Day Test 2006, and it was Andrew Strauss who got out, and it was that I remember seeing.
Yeah, that was his 700th wicket, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that there aren't many as I said, because of my limited experience over the years, there aren't many cricket moments that stick in my mind. But that for me is one of the kind of crowning moments. And didn't he at some point, not too long ago, actually cite Rod Marsh as being one of his influences?
Yeah.
So to lose two people so closely connected in exactly the same way in the same week is such a massive loss to cricket.
You've got Simon Harris's comment there in the comments. Warne's larger than life. So many people have commented on his death from all walks of life and icon. And that's true. It doesn't matter if you're a cricket fan, like I said. What's your memories of him, Neil, like Shane Warne? I remember when he played at the Oval in 2005 and he's doffed his hat to the crowd and they were singing like, "We wish you were English," because I think cricket, you get rivalries. I think it's a little bit different than football. Cricketers, I think that I'd say football is sort of that post cricket. I can respect and love watching any cricketer around the world. It doesn't matter what team they play for me and country.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this has been said a lot since Friday in terms of Warne's ability to be massively competitive within a game. But as soon as anybody did something of great quality, whether it be a 50, 100, he would instantly sort of applaud them, and out of game was obviously very respectful of people. And I think that's been, I've heard that a lot since Friday, and it was true. He was always respectful of anybody that did well in the game. My experience, the Gatting Wonder Ball, I can remember watching live on TV, and you suddenly think you've heard about this guy, and there was a little bit of hype about him, although I know he hadn't really hit any heights at that point, but everybody was raving about how much he could turn the ball, and then you saw that and you're like, okay, yeah, it's got something about this guy, do you know what I mean? But yeah, just he was ultimate competitor, and again, a lot of what we're going to say is obviously what's been repeated since Friday, but I was 15 at that time, 93, and everybody said the same, and it was true. After that point, everybody wanted to be either a batsman or a fast bowler. I was a fast bowler. But then suddenly everybody wants to bowl leg spin, and it's the mark of the man that he rejuvenated, certainly leg spin, but spin in general, throughout cricket, and nothing more can be said about somebody of that nature, of that standing in the game.
They said when that series building up, and they played Worcester, I think, and Alan Border was obviously the captain back then, and I think Graham Hick smashed him all over New Road, and Border said to Warne, just don't bowl none of your variations, and he's come into that test. I always remember the commentating when he comes on, Shane Warne with his first ball, and you think from that day on, his life was never ever the same again, was it?
No, it was, as Neil said, because I am 52, it's kind of like really hit home. Obviously the Marsh thing, well, obviously he was 70 odd and what have you, but then the Warne thing, it's just like, wow, it's just an absolute, it's one of those that stops you in your tracks on many levels. But I was lucky enough to be invited to Lancashire's sort of end of season sort of player of the year type dinner at the Point, and Mike Gatting was the guest speaker, and he talked through that sort of ball of the century and what have you. And if you watch that ball, it's drifting down leg before it pitches. It's just absolutely sort of wonderful. What an introduction! It's a bit like the Burns dismissal of the Ashes Test. It's that kind of that kind of impact. But it was just, again, as Neil said, it just rejuvenated the art of spin bowling. And, sort of being involved in cricket, suddenly everybody was sort of trying to get the ball out the back of the hand, and young lads were saying, can you show us how to, not that I can bowl the odd legger, but it's nothing that I can master. But it was just phenomenal, and what a character! And as you say, Richard, it's a less partisan sport, and you would rather have him playing for you than against you. But then when he took the reins later on in his career, when he took the reins and captained at Hampshire, what a fantastic captain he was, and he was a cricket man through and through, a sportsman through and through. And I know Neil's had Dan Norcross on his club's podcast, and we were lucky enough to have Dan Norcross doing our presentation even a few years back, and probably not for this forum, but it was Dan Norcross was telling some interesting stories about Shane Warne, and he certainly burned the candle at both ends, and larger than life character, but absolutely had time for everybody. With cricket, he was a cricket man, and it was the second highest test wicket taker of all time. Unbelievable, phenomenal.
I suppose you had in the 80s, it was the West Indies, the pace quartet, wasn't it? That were intimidating, but on a physical level, when you're probably batting against them, there's a chance that you could get hurt. Whereas, and this is why I like Test cricket, it's on a higher level than any T20 game, any 100, any 50 over game, because Shane Warne, it was like theatre. When he bowled, it was all about him. And I find Test cricket really, really interesting, where it's a mental game, isn't it? He couldn't hurt anyone physically because he was a spinner. But the mental, you've only got to look. I don't know if we all remember Darryl Cullinan, who played for South Africa. Really, really good batsman, wasn't he?
Yeah. But
Shane Warne got in here, and he couldn't lay a bat on him. He was like his bunny, wasn't he? And I think in the series when they went down under, he hardly scored a run. And that's what I find about Shane Warne. He'd stand at the end of his run, tossing the ball. He'd move a fielder a little bit there. England, I've got the stats down here. 195 Ashes wickets he took. And I always remember, I don't know if you remember, Neil, Mark Ramprakash. I think it was Trent Bridge. We played them. I think it would have been about 2001. That was the series when Warne was dancing on the balcony with a stump when they won the Test series. And Mark Ramprakash, he was mentally done by him. Charged down the wicket. He's got, if you go on YouTube, you can probably search that out. His eyes are like saucers. And he's stumped by a mile. And you think, Shane Warne has got right in your head. And he wasn't the only English batsman to suffer that, was he, Neil?
Well, it's funny because Chris in the chat has put about him having to reinvent himself after surgery. And I was listening to the radio, and Jared Kimber, the Australian commentator, was on. And he was telling a story how Warne openly admitted to this after his playing days, that before his surgery and before him having to reinvent his action, he had different variations and basically confused the batsman off the back of that. After the surgery, he knew full well he couldn't bowl the variations that he did beforehand. But as you say, it was all in the mind. And what he did afterwards, after his surgery, was basically con the batters that he was still doing the same things that he was doing pre-surgery. But he wasn't. He only really had his googly, his leg break, and a flipper. Whereas previously he had sort of 3 or 4 other variations. And
was it the Zuta, Neil? The Zuta that he it was a load of nonsense, wasn't it?
It was nonsense. Yeah. It was basically just the flipper that he claimed did something else. But as I say, for somebody to have that level of surgery, and as I say, just the measure of the man that he could actually outthink the batsman. As you said, Cullinan was his bunny. And just get in their heads, and to that extent, just again, more credence to what a great exponent of spin, but also the game in general. He knew how it worked.
Yeah, Chris Boyd there says he takes very little interest in one-day internationals and T20s because there's another along tomorrow. Test matches matter, and we've also lost one of the most vocal supporters of the format. And he was, wasn't he, Owen? He was a real vocal about Test cricket. I want to touch on, what do you think we've lost with his commentary? Because I thought he was a real good commentator as well, Owen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's a true professional. I think one thing that we've really lost from it is he was able to deconstruct the game. Very complex stuff that's going on in the game, like tactics and some of the variation balls, to just really simple ways so that the casual watcher could understand really complicated stuff. And especially like some of the masterclass he did in between innings, where he was just deconstructing what the bowler's doing and how the batsman react. I found that really, really useful. And actually, when I do kids coaching, they are things I point them towards to go and watch so they can understand and gain better analysis of the game. I think his legacy in terms of what he brought to the game in that respect will live on a lot longer than watching YouTube in terms of that. But just the way I know the irony is that he was anti-coaching, isn't he? But I think the way that he managed to use that stuff, I think will be. I think children will be brought up to watch Shane Warne for generations, like we Bradman and stuff.
So did you know, Ian, he's got the most runs in Test cricket without a century, 3,154.
Yeah, I mean, I think because he played, was it 158 tests? I mean, certainly some of the stuff that they've done on Sky when they do the the master classes and everything, absolutely, it rains and they stick one of those on. Absolutely fascinating for those of us involved with the game and interested in the game in any sense. But from a coaching perspective, absolutely fascinating stuff. He could bat. I think he started off in grade cricket as a number 4 batsman, and he was captain. So he's done all that. I mean, there's a couple of interesting comments in the chat there about the best Australian player never to captain the side. Well, perhaps some of its off-field
that probably stopped
behaviour would put a stop to that. And Australia haven't been short of very good captains like Ponting and people like that. So, they weren't short of a good captain or two. But just phenomenal. I mean, he liked to bat. He liked to give it a bit of a bash. It was always quite, when he came in, you knew that, this was going to be worth watching. But it's 18 years ago he retired. Unbelievable. It doesn't seem that long ago, but 18 years, wow. 2007, I think it was.
Didn't he come back for a bit in the Big Bash?
Yeah, he did. And I think there's a load of clips that's been coming out, and it was on he was on the mic, and I think he was bowling at one of the New Zealand batsmen, and he said, I think I'll bowl one. I'll bowl a quicker one, the Zuta or whatever he wanted to call it at that time, and he bowled him, and it was just unbelievable. Brendan McCullum, I think it was. It's just I still can't fathom. I still can't believe that he's gone. It's just when older cricketers, God bless Bob Willis. I was in London at the time actually when Bob Willis died, and that we knew he was ill and all of that kind of thing. And where in fact, I was staying at the Danubius Hotel just outside of Lords, and at breakfast, Charles Dagnall was having breakfast, and morning dags kind of thing. And we just talked about Bob Willis, and it's a tragedy when somebody of that age, especially if they're ill, has died. But somebody that's so young and that's so current, and it's just mind blowing, really.
Yeah, I think it would take a lot of people. You just got to feel for he's got 3 young kids, and I really feel for his parents as well, because no parent should ever have to be going to a funeral with their child, and he's got a brother. Obviously, they're going to have a state funeral in Victoria, in Melbourne. They've named the stand, haven't they? The Great Southern Stand, the SK Warne Stand. They've done that already. I don't know if you see there was some great stuff left at his the statue, wasn't there? Someone had left a can of beer, a packet of fags, and a meat pie, and I thought that just sort of he was a man of the people, I think, wasn't he, Shane Warne? I think if you're English or whatever country, Shane Warne comes onto bowl. I think you if you're watching at home, you'd stop what you're doing. If you're in the ground at the bar, you get back in your seat because you always knew there was something special was going to happen, wasn't there, Owen?
Yeah, there aren't many. I was just actually about to think that there aren't many bowlers you can think of that would empty the bars. Like a lot of batsmen that you could say, oh, like Viv Richards, more even current players would when they come to bat would go back to their seats. But there aren't many bowlers that can achieve that. And I think that's a real. So there's a real level of skill that he has, and also, as you were saying earlier, Rich, is that he hasn't got that wow factor that for the casual fan that a fast bowler has. You can just chuck on YouTube and look at it 100 miles an hour. It's the fact that he was bowling that sort of more delicate variation of the game, and he's still transcended into huge superstar status is incredible. I found it. I didn't realize he'd never scored a century though. I found that incredible. Given that he was playing when Bangladesh were awful, and even Gillespie got that double ton, didn't he? But,
he got 99. That was his fastest score against New Zealand. I think he was trying to hit a 6 and he got caught. He did score a century for Hampshire when he was over here, when he captained them. I've got some stats here. Look, 708 Test wickets, 293 ODI wickets, 7-time Ashes winner, 195 Ashes wickets, like I said. One of 5 Wisden cricketers of the 20th century. 17 Man of the Match awards. His debut in 1992, Ian, he took 1 for 150 against India at Sydney. 37 5-wicket hauls, 10 10-wicket hauls, best bowling 8 for 71, best bowling in the match of 12 for 128. We'll just finish the Shane Warne chat here. We'll go around the room and just anyone's got your favourite Shane Warne memory. We'll start with you, Neil.
I mean, I'll go for the obvious one. I think the Gatting ball. I mean, as I say, I watched it live on TV, suddenly felt all the hype that had been created about him. And let's face it, that's what set him on his way. And yeah, it was just such a moment to remember.
Terry?
You've already had mine.
Remind me.
Strauss.
2006.
Oh, yeah, the Strauss. Yeah, the Strauss. Yeah. That was a great one. Owen?
Well, my favourite memory of him is Ronnie Irani hitting for 6 over what is now the Felston School stand. But a more positive note, he was just. When he was at his pomp, I was a young teenager. So for me, he was just an icon. And there's one memory. I had on my bedroom wall, I had a poster of Shane Warne. The first thing when I woke up in the morning was I saw Shane Warne and Vaughan's posters. And so he was just there, and he was one of that great Australian team. I think is definitely a part of the reason why I love cricket so much. So there's not one moment for me. It's just a general. He's helped me to become the fan I am today.
Ian?
This is a bit of a left field one, but I don't know if you're aware the old Australian comedy show Kath and Kim. It is on Netflix if you want to catch up with it. He actually starred in one episode of that when one of the characters was going out with a Shane Warne impersonator, and it was actually Shane Warne, and they were playing some backyard cricket, and he was throwing it over the fence. He couldn't bowl it at all, and this girl was trying to teach him the flipper so that he could deliver the wedding ring as a flipper. It was just one of those things. It's probably a bit niche, that one, but I mean the way that he got Strauss out a few times, agreeing with it's just absolutely fantastic, because to get it round his bat, and to get the ball to rag back like that, Strauss thought he could just kick it away, and just phenomenal. And Strauss just looked and didn't know what, and he did Strauss a couple of times like that.
I think my favourite one was, I think it's 94 at Brisbane when he bowls Alex Stewart with the flipper. I think the 2 previous balls he's bowled a couple of just normal leggies outside off, and Alex Stewart's hit him for 4. and he's obviously expecting another one, and he absolutely cleans him up. I think middle stump. Always remember Ian Healy, another great cricketer behind the stumps, his celebration. And always remember that was the series as well, I think, Ian, when he took the hat-trick at Melbourne, didn't he, in that series?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the measure of the man, isn't it? You know, not many bowlers take a hat-trick, and of course he had to do it. It just, you know, he's sort of done it all, hasn't he? It's just an icon, and it's just such a shock, you know. It really is, you know. It's just bizarre.
Right, so we'll wrap up the Shane Warne chat there. Look, I think we're all shocked. We're still going to be shocked in a few weeks' time, and I just sending, like, they won't be watching this, I know that, but thoughts to his family, his kids, you know, and all of his friends. So we'll move on now to England, some England chat. The Ashes is long gone. We've that's all gone from our memories, hasn't it? Was it 4-0? I can't remember. It was so long ago. Yeah, we're starting again. We're starting afresh. We've got the broom in. Silverwood's gone. Giles is gone. Graham Thorpe's gone. Obviously, he paid for the filming the lads having a few beers after. He's gone. Joe Root's still captain. And we named the squad for the series. And I want to talk on the omissions because, look, they've obviously left out Don Bess, Sam Billings, who I think I did say on here he'll probably be a one-cap wonder. Can't see him playing another test match. Josh Butler, he's gone to probably concentrate. He'll be smashing some county bowlers all around England, hopefully. Ian?
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, you hope. David Milan, he's been put on the back burner. I think that's probably with his age. I think that'll be the end for him. Rory Burns, Hasim Hamid, he's gone. But the two I want to talk about is the omissions of Messrs Anderson and Broad. Who wants to start with their thoughts? You might think it's a good thing. You might think it's a bad thing. Who wants to start with that?
Go on, I'll have a go because I want to have a moan. Unsurprisingly, I listen. When they announced it, I completely get it. They're aging. We need to find replacements. Don't get me wrong, but 100%, what we need right now is a recovery, and a recovery isn't going to happen with new caps and, with the greatest of respect, Chris Woakes playing abroad. It's just not going to happen.
That's not fair. Brandon's not here to defend Chris Woakes because he is the leader of the Chris Woakes fan club.
If he decided to, I would just shout him down anyway, to be quite frank. So as it stands, and now Robinson's injured.
Oh, but we'll touch on him in a minute because we did say I've said about him before. Yeah. So when I actually see the news that he'd gone off with a back injury, I sort of thought, oh, here we go again. Nothing's really changed, has it?
I mean, as we said, you know, I think I'd be amazed if any of us say anything different, but we needed a recovery. The Ashes was a shambles. We haven't won a test in God knows how long. And we're going over to face, albeit a talented bunch of cricketers in the West Indies who are improving. And certainly, you know, they have shown good results of recent years. We need to be beating them in their own backyard. And the only way we're going to have a chance to do that is with Broad and Anderson there. That said, I think we have got players who can take wickets. Wood being somebody I'm, very hopeful of. I was very surprised when Fisher was announced to be going as a Yorkshireman.
Yeah, I was going to say about what. Tell us a little bit about Matt Fisher, because probably a lot of people watching won't know a lot about him. What does he bring to the table?
Do you want to know a little bit of a story about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Basically, I was doing my own range of cricket equipment. Is that annoying you? Because my speaker's just going off for no apparent reason. Sorry about that. Anyway, I was doing my own cricket equipment. I had a friend who played at the same club as Matthew Fisher when he was about 13, and Sherry Foot Bridge in York, and he said, if you want to sponsor one to get your kit going, this is the next guy. He'll be brilliant. And I was like, I can't afford to do that. And lo and behold, within, I think it was 4 or 5 years, he was playing in the Yorkshire first team. I've got to say, I'm not his biggest fan. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's outstanding. It was really surprising when he got on the tour to me. I hope they give him a chance, because what's the point? And the same with Parkinson. I'll defend Ian.
We come into Matt Parkinson. Don't worry about that.
They shouldn't be going if they're not given a chance.
100% agree with you.
But they're not Broad and Anderson. End of. That's the situation.
Yeah, I just think it's a little bit weird, because I think with England, the trouble is we're always building towards the Ashes, aren't we? We're always, we're looking to Australia in 2 years' time. And we seem to forget that there is other countries that we're playing and that we haven't done very well against. You know, and like you're saying, we're going to the West Indies there, and we've not won there, I think, since 2004. So, to me, you look at the next. I totally understand that they have to look to the future, right? I get that. So, but if you're looking to the future, and I totally agree with you, Neil, Chris Wokes should not be touring the West Indies. You look at his bowling average. Look, at home, I've not got a problem in English conditions picking him, because he's decent. But away from home, he just doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. Anderson and Broad, it seems that they're the fall guys for what happened down under. And if you look at them, they're top of the averages.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as though if they weren't like, I'm not saying improving, but if they weren't worth their place in the team, I totally get it. But I'm not saying both of them should play at the same time, because I think you have to look to the future somewhere. But for me, I would have still took both of them. I think they deserve to be on that tour. And I think the way they've been treated, is it Andrew Strauss he's probably called the shots here, possibly? I think they deserve a little bit better, Terry, to be quite honest. That the way they've been treated, I think, for what they've given to English cricket. I know Jimmy's not going to come out. He's not going to say anything. Stuart Broad in his column, he's not going to hold back, because you know what type of character he is. And I think he's within his rights to say, I'm not happy that I've been left out. And I think both of them, if this is the end for them, I think it's a real shame, and they deserve a lot better.
Yeah. I was reading up on, I was trying to get a few different perspectives on this, because I can't wrap my head around the decision, to be honest. And the key phrase that kind of comes through is that it's all about strategic thinking, forward thinking, giving options. But actually, when you take the two most successful members of the squad out, actually your options are a bit more limited. And you're keeping Root as captain. I mean, we talked endlessly about, you know, the weaknesses there. And he wants to move himself up the order. But how
do you think he feels, Terry, going back on Joe Root as captain, because everyone else has gone and he's survived? Now, he must think that I don't know how he'd be seen from other members of the team, because they're thinking, well, the coach has gone, you know, Graham Thorpe's gone, Ashley Giles has gone. We've just got absolutely hammered again down under, and you're still captain. I think he's probably lucky that there's no one else around.
Well, I think so. I think he's kind of. I think he's in a weird position, because I think he's a bit, probably, you know, in terms of his position in the team, he's going to have a hard job, I think, kind of galvanizing the team, because actually he's going to be isolated, because he hasn't got, you know, the people around him that he had previously. Or it could go the other way, and it could be, well, actually, he gets a bit of an inflated sense of ego, and, well, actually, I'm the one that's come out, you know, shiny in all of this, and everyone else has been sort of pushed out. So I honestly don't know. You know, he's moving up the order at his own request. You know, so is that the first sign of him kind of throwing his weight around? I don't know. But
that's a strange one, Terry, because he never wanted to bat at number 3 before.
No, exactly. So where's that U-turn come from? You know, is it a renewed sense of confidence? You know, I'd ask that question. But going back to Anderson and Broad, I mean, I can't, you know, Strauss literally was just, I think there's a whole, I forget which which website I looked on, but there is a whole set of, I think it's 3 paragraphs where he talks about the decision, and he actually says nothing. There's nothing of any kind of substance there. It's just waffle. And so, you know, I don't think, whilst they're dressing it up as a strategic decision, well, actually, if you're talking about strategy, you're looking ahead to outcomes. And they're saying that it's not the end for Broad and Anderson. This doesn't feel like this doesn't feel like it's not the end. This does feel like, you know, actually you're past your sell-by date now. You've had your success. We want to let the new people through. I wonder if, you know, privately, potentially there's been some kind of upset. You know, there's been crosswords somewhere, or, you know, that we're not aware of. Because this doesn't seem to me to be a sensible decision at all. Why would you take your 2 best players out? You know, not even bring them, not even name them in the squad. You know, not asking them to necessarily, you know, play every game, but that, it just seems a nonsense to me. And I think, you know, what they're reporting in terms of the reasons, I don't believe it.
I suppose a lot depends, Owen, who's going to be like Ashley Giles' replacement, and the new coach. A lot's going to depend on who gets selected to, if they come back, Broad and Anderson, because the new guys might come in and they might think, right, I don't want them to here. They've got too much, because obviously they'll have a big influence in the dressing room. You know, they've been around for years. But the new coach, whoever he is, he might think, no, I don't want them. So if this is the end, it's poor, because I think they deserve to bow out like Alistair Cook did, you know, at the Oval that time against India. They've done enough for English cricket to, I personally think, I still think Stuart Broad's got another 2 or 3 years in him. Jimmy's probably, I'd have thought this summer would probably be the end for Jimmy, but they should have that chance to say, right, I'm going to bow out at the Oval with a full house and be able to walk off to a standing ovation and head off into the sunset.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is the right thing to do. But I find this whole thing really disrespectful. I think, as Terry's saying about the statement, it sounded like management guff, that no one was brave enough to say really why they've been dropped. I think if we go back to like Strauss's captaincy, we can learn 2 things from that. One, he likes brand new starts. That whole brand new plan to get to number 1 that Alistair then took over. That seems to be this. Everyone's out, brand new, fresh play, as him as like sort of de facto leader now. And also, he can't stand criticism. That was a common thing throughout his captaincy, that anyone criticised him. Just obviously, KP was the big one, but it was just generally out the door. And as you said, Broad is as openly outspoken about how terrible people played in the Ashes. He spoke about his treatment. He spoke about immediately on radio afterwards. I don't think Strauss likes that. We don't know what Jimmy's been saying behind the scenes. Probably, I mean, he's notoriously a very frank person, so I imagine he's been letting his opinions be well known. I think Strauss is trying to create this, not quite fiefdom, but sort of like this director sort of role, and having 2 very, very respected, not on the same playing card as him, senior cricketers. I don't think fits that plan, and that's why I believe they've been thrown out. You know, in a way that's awful. I think it's terrible the way they've been sent out scrappy. Even personally, I would think we should even take them as like, you remember when David Beckham got taken to the World Cup, where he was out of the squad, but he got taken because he's a senior member, he can pass his skills on. Even just for that role, he goes to the West Indies, got these new players coming through, help them. People like if I was Fisher, it would be awesome, wouldn't it, to go on tour with James Anderson and learn from his craft. This whole thing, I think it's really going to bite England, and I don't think we're going to do very well in this series. And it's strange that the few success stories is from the Ashes, and you decide to throw them out the plane. So,
what about you, Ian? What do you make of it all?
Sorry, there was a bit of interference there. What was that?
What do you make of it all, Jimmy and Broad?
I think as colleagues have said there, I think they've been left out because I think they're being saved for the summer. I don't think it's the end of the road for either player. I do think Broad's got a little bit more left in the tank than Jimmy. I think when Broad was left out of that Windies game and nobody could sense why, he came back sort of fit and firing. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's something to do with the fact that they've all been moaning about being in bubbles and away from home and all of this, that and the other. I know we'll moved on slightly from that. yeah, I think it is possibly they're looking at. I hope they're not underestimating the Windies as they possibly did with the White Ball series, as we know. Obviously, we covered it. It does seem odd. I think what's highlighted the problem is that old sick note Robinson is they were relying, I think, on him to sort of lead the line. I think we are going to see Wokes because he offers a little bit more with the bat than perhaps Mahmood. And Mahmood's only been drafted in anyway as a sort of a backup because Robinson has gone. So I can't see Mahmood being in the 11. I know they've got Liam Norwell from Warwickshire on sort of standby just in case somebody else goes. Tom Dick. It does seem an odd one, but I do think, I know the guys have said, it's strategy and things like that. I think that's probably what it is, and I think they're saving them. I think they're giving them a bit of a rest for the summer. Whether it's right or wrong,
isn't that a bit dangerous? Because it could go two ways. England could be left with egg on their face. They lose this series and then they bring them back for the summer. But if all goes well and we perform well out here and you have people stand up and take wickets, then people could say, well, I've done my job there. I should be in the team, Neil, for the first test of the summer. But you've brought Jimmy back or you've brought Broady back.
Put themselves in a really awkward position. This is the problem they now face. I was going to say something really negative then and say I don't think anybody's going to stand up that well to actually threaten Broad and Anderson, but you're quite right. If somebody does, let's say it's, I don't know, well, we know Mark Wood's going to get in. Let's say Overton. Again, I don't think he will, but let's say he has an absolutely cracking series, takes 16, 18 wickets. Yeah, of course, he's going to feel, well, he should, number one, he should be in first place to retain his place, but how do you handle that then? How do you handle it moving forward? I happen to agree with Ian. I think they will, Broad and Anderson will get brought back in, but it just feels why situation. If they're going to be brought back in the summer, why aren't they being played now? It doesn't make any sense to drop them now and then bring them in the summer. It's got to be one or the other. So yeah, as I say, I genuinely think that nobody's going to stand out enough. Somebody might have a good series, but I'm not sure it'll be enough to displace them if Broad and Anderson are then available for the summer. But yeah, as I say, they put themselves in a really awkward situation now from a selection point of view.
Yeah, talking about selection
as well. It could backfire as well, Neil, because if England beat, the West Indies or that it gives you that headache. But if the West Indies beat England, we get hammered, and these bowlers are, throwing it around like a sort of a proverbial madman. They could say, "Well, we didn't have Broad and Anderson." They could sort of defend it like that. It just seems it just seems muddled thinking to me. I don't know. I don't know what. I'm not too sure what good can come out of it. But
talking of muddled thinking, I'm going to let you come off your long run. So, look, we've got the 12 there that they've selected for Tuesday. Joe Root, the captain, Johnny Bairstow, Zach Crawley, Ben Folkes, Dan Lawrence. I'll leave Jack Leach because I want to talk about him. Alex Lee's going to be opening. I think we did call that on here. Saqib Mahmood, Overton, Ben Stokes, Chris Wokes, Mark Wood. Right, so we go back to Jack Leach. Jack Leach is another one, Ian, that I don't think, from what I've seen of the winter and test matches before that, he didn't play a test last summer, did he? Didn't get selected. He's one, for me, who doesn't have the full faith of the captain. So why is he still in? We know what he can do, and I know it's all about we need to win this series. I do get that. And I know you're a massive Matt Parkinson fan. So talk to me about why Matt Parkinson should be playing and Jack Leach shouldn't.
It's a very, again, I don't understand it. I mean, we've talked about leaving Broad and Anderson out. if they're going to go all experimental and let's have a look at people, have we not seen enough of Jack Leach, irrespective of whether or not he was carrying a lot of drinks last summer? I think when they played in the warm-up game and Parkinson wasn't playing, and it now looks like he's going to be carrying the drinks. I mean, it might well be, I think, as we discussed on previous shows, it might be that they're looking at different 11s for these 3 tests and almost using it as a trial going forward and for the summer. Parkinson spins it more than Jack Leach, and we want a spinner to spin it. Leach is more of a containing bowler, apart from when he's going around the park. They're both equally limited with the bat. Let's be honest. So whoever plays is going to fill that number 11 slot quite nicely, only because there aren't 12 players. But Parkinson, he deserves a chance. He's got good numbers. He was Lancashire's Player of the Year. We're looking around the counties, and I think we've discussed it again. You've got to give him a chance. What's he gonna learn carrying more drinks? He might as well be going to Dubai with Lancashire, and getting some. They're going on a pre-season tour to they're playing in Dubai and what have you. He might as well go there than sit and watch people play.
Yeah, because it's interesting what you say. They might look. We don't know what they're going to do with the 11 for the second test. I suppose a lot depends on how we get on in this first test. But he could carry the drinks all tour. Then we get to the summer, and how's he going to get a chance in the summer? Realistically,
they might end up being undercooked for the county championship. I know they do a lot of bowling in nets, and they're obviously keeping fit and stuff. But I don't know. But
then again, Owen, we don't really need a spinner when we've got Dan Lawrence in the 11, do we? With his little twirlers.
Well, you've got Sorry, I mean you've got Root and Lawrence who can both twirl.
They might not actually pick a spinner, Owen. They were saying they might leave Leach out. So obviously then you go to Lawrence and you go to Root, don't you, to do the spinning?
Yeah, well, I do agree with Ian. I think Parkinson for me is the out and above the standout candidate for if you want to have an out and out spin bowler, he's the man to go to. But I slightly disagree that I don't think it's a waste of time him going and carrying drinks. I think sort of almost like an apprenticeship or internship, it's like getting used to the England environment if he's someone they see for the future, and then he can sort of get comfortable. I can't imagine the pressure you'd be under if you went selected for England, you don't really know anybody, and then suddenly you're having to bowl. I'm amazed that people sustain that pressure and they bowl. Those horror stories you see where people collapse. I don't blame them really, because it's just from county cricket to international cricket, it's another level in terms of you've got crowds, the media suddenly care who you are. But yeah, so I don't think it's that bad idea. However, I do agree completely in that Parkinson should bowl. But I also think that the West Indian pitches have moved on since when we normally think of those sort of very fast, rapid, almost dangerous pitches from the 80s and 90s. They do offer a bit more turn now. Since they held the World Cup, they've got better facilities. The grounds are better repaired. But I think there's more to offer in terms of and that need of variation. Yeah, I would have Lawrence down as I'd like to see more overs from him, and then he gets, and Essex as well.
But it's nice to see Dan Lawrence, Terry, getting a go because obviously talking about carrying the drinks, he's probably come out the Ashes probably a lot better than Ollie Pope because obviously he's not played a game, and Pope was in there obviously struggling, and he's been selected. Pope, he's in the squad, and he's not obviously going to play in this first test. I think this is Lawrence's chance, isn't it? Really, he's got 3. He's probably going to play all 3 tests. I would have thought it's his chance now to nail down that spot in the team, get some runs, and then when the summer comes, obviously start well for Essex, and then hopefully get some runs for England throughout the summer.
Yeah, I think that's hopefully what we can look forward to. But as you say, this is his big opportunity, and I think he's been gifted this. So I'd be very surprised if we don't see him in all 3. I think we were disappointed for him. However long back it was now, feels like it was months and months ago now. But obviously, Owen and I, as Essex fans, will be very, very excited to to see him. Yeah, I think it's an opportunity. I think he's going to be champing at the bit. To be honest with you, I think he will go out there and give it all he's got, because he's got a point to prove, and I'm just looking forward to seeing him play. So yeah, good on him.
I do think sometimes, Neil, players do become better players when they're out of the team, don't they? I think for Lawrence, he's probably dodged a bullet through the winter by not. But I see that he said he was disappointed he didn't get selected, which I understand that. But me thinking as a fan, I'm thinking you've done all right there by not playing, because it was an absolute car crash of a series, wasn't it? And now he's got a clean slate to come in and hopefully nail down that spot in the team.
That's exactly it. His stock hasn't taken a nosedive like certain others. So ultimately, he's next off the line in terms of his chance to show what he can do. And like you said, fresh slate, opportunity. We know he can do it. He's done it before. So as I say, I think it's now an opportune time for him to really grab the ball by the horns. We're talking about the bowling and there's the people to come back in from a bowling perspective with Broad and Anderson. From a batting perspective, for all the batters that are on tour now, this is their time. This is their time to cement that place in the top order, because it's open season from a top order point of view. So yeah, if anybody can get some runs on this tour, the summer's theirs for the taking, really.
Yeah, because I don't think they're going to go back to. I think Milan. I think I did say. I think when we'd done our final Ashes look back, I think that was in January. I did say I wouldn't have picked him for the West Indies. I think at his age now, I think he's had ample opportunity, and I think we need to move forward. It is interesting. Joe Root's going to bat at 3 when he's not batted there. He doesn't really want to bat there. He's taken that upon himself, which he might as well bat there anyway, because he's at 4 and he's normally in with 2 down for about 20 anyway. So just gets in a little bit earlier. Obviously, Alex Lees is going to be opening the batting. I think that top 7. I know Folkes he's got the gloves. That's pretty nailed on, Ian, I'd have thought, for this series.
Well, again, it's difficult to know what the strategy is. I would think certainly for the first game, I would think probably our 11s are going to be pretty similar. I mean, obviously it's a very narrow now that they've named the 12, of course. But I think Root batting at 3. I'm not sure there is anybody else that I would bat at 3 in that lineup. Again, it's a bit like the captaincy. Whether or not it's Root saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to step up and bat at 3," because he does prefer to bat at 4. Although, as you say, he certainly needs to. If he is batting at 4, he needs to make sure he's got his pads on. But it's probably the best option. I think it's the best option. I think it's probably the only option. And I think likewise with the captaincy. But yeah, Lawrence again deserves his chance, and I hope he takes it. I like the way he goes about his cricket, and an exciting young player. Like you say, he can turn his arm. But that looks like a fairly nailed on sort of top 7. But what they're going to do, I don't know. I mean, the only other options is Pope anyway, and Fisher's in the squad. So it looks like it's going to be pretty similar. Yeah,
I think he's had his chance in the Aussies series. I think Ollie Pope. I think you never know. There might be an injury, he might come in, but I think he just needs to. And that's the thing, though. He'll go back to county cricket and he will score a shed load of runs. Yeah. But when he comes in next time, because he probably will he's young enough, he probably will get another chance. He really needs to grab that, because you can't keep in and out the team. He's obviously very, very talented. I think he averages 99 at the Oval, so he's no mug. But when he does next get that chance, he needs to grab it with both hands, which Dan Lawrence needs to do now. Alex Lee's at the top of the order. We're all hoping that him and Zach Crawley, they're going to be the new Cook and Strauss, because we have been looking since them 2 retired, haven't we, for 2 solid openers to give us that foundation we're 20 for 2 nearly every single time, aren't we? I think in the Ashes, what was it? I think it was 76, wasn't it? The last test at Hobart, highest standard of series, and you're not going to get anywhere unless you put runs on the board. And so, saying that, a few predictions. Who do we all think is going to be the leading run scorer for England in the series? We'll start with Owen.
Joe Root. When you asked to do our 11s, I really struggled with the batting. I just didn't want any. Apart from Root, I just didn't. And Lawrence, because Essex fan, but I didn't really. Nothing else shone at me. So I'll go for Root.
Neil.
I'm going to go left field. I'm going to go Bairstow.
Yeah, good shout. Got a century in the warm-up, didn't he?
Form, yeah, in form. Seems to have got his mojo back a little bit. I can see them playing quite an attacking brand of cricket. I think they might go towards a more attacking brand of cricket. And, I can see Bairstow scoring a few.
Terry, who do you think?
Well, I'm inclined to agree with Bairstow, actually. I was hoping you're
going to have your Essex hat on and say Dan Lawrence.
I don't know, because I don't. Whilst I'm optimistic, there's a difference between, being really, really positive and not having like the grounding. So yeah, no, I'm not gonna. Also, I'm a bit superstitious, as I said before, and I shouldn't be because there's absolutely no grounding in it at all. However, I don't want to jinx Lawrence's journey.
Who are you going for, Ian?
Josh Bohannon. No, I think Owen's bang on. I think Root's probably what we're relying on. It would be nice if somebody like Crawley was up there as well. Means that he's spent time at the crease. We know that he can. It would be more green shoots from Crawley. I'm going to go for Crawley.
No,
Look at Crawley's stats before we did this. He's averaging away at 21 in Test matches, and last year his Test match batting average was 10.
Yeah.
Well, my predictions are like Neil's out of left field then.
Yeah, I might put 5 on that. That'd be good odds.
So I'm going to go. I think I might go a bit left field. I'm going to go top run scorer for England. It's going to be Ben Folkes. That might not be a good thing because that might mean that the top order are struggling.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But I think everyone said Root, or I was going to say Ben Stokes. I think he needs to have a good series because he struggled in Australia. But Folkes has got the chance now. He's another one he should be nailed on for the next, I'd say, these tests and the summer.
Yeah.
He's the best gloveman and he's proved that he can get runs. I think Josh Butler's test days, I think they're probably over. I think he'll be white ball. He'll be the next captain when Morgan packs it in on the fort. And I think Johnny Bairstow, he really does need to just concentrate on his batting because he's probably suffered. They've messed him about, haven't they? He's had the gloves and he's been the batsman and he's batted at number 3. So I think Ben Folkes, he's going to nail it this series. He's going to get a lot of dismissals and he'll get a century in there as well. So there you go.
When they played that North v South, when they played that North v South match in Barbados about 3 years ago, the year before COVID, didn't Folkes do really well in that match? I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
He got quite a few runs at Barbados. So I'm like you're thinking, Rich. I think he'll do well. So.
Well, we hope because obviously he's got the Essex links. He was at Essex as a youngster, and
he's born in Colchester. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he was a bit unlucky. I think was it last summer, Ian? He would have been probably playing in the first test, and he slip in the dressing room and tore his hamstring, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. There was an unfortunate incident. As we've discussed, there's even talk we were saying about him being the best option with the gloves for England. There was an article that I was reading recently suggesting that he was the best gloveman in the world at the moment, which is quite a claim. But somebody made that. I can't remember who the journalist was. Where in the order have you got him batting though, Rich, to be scoring all those runs?
He's going to be 7.
You've got him at 7, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to bat higher, is he really?
No, I've in the 11. I've sort of quickly scribble down. I've got him at 8. But
well, after the Ashes, if you get 300 runs, that's probably going to put you in contention for top scorer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So
the bar's not very high, is it?
let's go for leading wicket taker. I will go first, and I am gonna. Well, Mark Wood. I'll go Overton. You know, a bit of left field. I don't rate him that highly. I agree with Neil, but I think this is his time to shine. He's another one who's not played a lot of cricket lately. I think he's going to have a good series. So I'll go Overton as. I would have said Ollie Robinson, but like we've discussed before, I think it's. I don't think they should have picked him in for this series. I think he should have gone away and really, really concentrated on his fitness, because we spoke about Robinson back in the Ashes, didn't we? Like, he's so fragile. He'll bowl a decent first spell, but then if you look at his speeds, they gradually go down, don't they? And then he ends up bowling off spin.
I don't think fitness is taken very seriously in cricket, though. Sorry.
Well, no.
I find this really weird. Look at every other sport, like cycling, running, all of those. Over the last few decades, all the records have been broken. People are getting faster and faster and faster. With nutrition and stats. Why in cricket are some of the fastest bowlers ever from the 70s and 80s? Why are we producing bowlers who can bowl 100 miles an hour? Every team should have a bowler that bowls 100 miles an hour. In my thinking, I find it really odd that in cricket we don't have that progression. Little side note, a little round.
Yeah.
Good question. I mean, it could be certainly with the ECB and the restrictions on younger bowlers, which I agree with. Obviously, I know we're all familiar with that. Maybe it's back in the day there weren't those sort of restrictions, and people could just go hell for leather and bowl as quick as they want. I don't know what the reason for it was, but it isn't. It's a great question, because like you say, everybody else is getting quicker. We've not really got anybody that's. I know Mark Wood can push it through, but there isn't anybody really that's sort of terrifying. No, certainly not in the England setup. Nobody's going to be frightened of facing anybody. I know Norwell's reasonably sharp, but I watched him sort of bowl all day against Lancashire, and he was okay. But it was an interesting track, actually. But he did bowl quite well, but not quick. There's nobody, like I say, quick like there used to be.
No.
So who's your leading wicket taker then, Ian?
Josh Mahan. No, I would say I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for Mark Wood.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. Yeah,
assuming that he plays all 3 tests.
Yeah,
but I think they might rest him in one.
Yeah, possibly.
And give him a chuck.
Neil, who do you think? Who are you going with?
Chris Wilkes. No, sorry, wrong name. No, I'm following Ian. I think the way Woody bowled in the T20s as well. I think the West Indies will suit him. Sun on his back. I agree he'll probably be rested for one match, but I think even being rested for 1 out of the 3, I think he'll probably still end up the leading wicket taker, to be quite frank.
It's a good shout. Terry?
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think there's a front runner massively, really. The difference between them is minimal. I mean, I think I'm not I'm not going to put my money on my mood, but I think I think I'm likely to go for Wood as well. I think he's probably the safest bet out of everyone. I was kind of dithering with Overton, but yeah, I think Mark Wood then Overton probably.
Owen, who are you going for?
We can't dismissal. Let's go, folks. But yeah, Wood. I'll be boring and say Wood like everyone else. I think on West Indian conditions, that'll suit him really well.
Yeah. Just quickly, Ian, going back on Mark, nearly called him Ollie Robinson. I think whoever the new coach is who comes in, they're going to have a word in his ear, because he really needs to pull his finger out, because he only needs to look at Anderson and Broad as examples of how he should be looking after himself. Going back, Craig in the chat from Portsmouth there a little while ago said he just doesn't look fit, and he can't keep breaking down. You know, cricket's a game where we can bring on a sub, but he can't take his place. So it's no good if you're picking him in a test match. The first morning he goes in the back, and then you're left with 10 players. He needs to get fitter, doesn't he?
I think what they need to do, and they've got all the backroom staff and physios and things like that. I think they need to take him to Loughborough and do all this sort of biometrics type stuff, because it could be, it might not be his underlying fitness, although everybody could be fitter. You know, that's an ongoing challenge, and I'm sure strengthening his back and being fitter and being leaner will help him. But it could be something to do with his action that is affecting he's getting these injuries, he's getting these niggles, and it could well be that they need to have a very close look, fine look at his action, just to see if there's something that they can tweak in order to avoid these sort of constant back injuries.
Right, so we've done leading run scorer, we've done leading wicket takers. Series result. Terry, how do you think we're going to fare?
1 out of 3.
How many West Indies going to win, though?
The rest.
Oh, no. So 2-1 West Indies. Owen, try and bring some positive.
I'm afraid it's not. I don't think we're taking it very seriously. I think it's 2-0 West Indies. 1 draw.
Oof. Neil.
They'll be up for it. I think they'll be up for it. They'll see that squad and go, this is our chance to beat England.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Neil, come on, be positive. Come on.
No, I'm going to only be slightly more positive, and I'll say 1-1.
Ian.
I've got 1-1 written down here as well, but I agree with Owen. I think the Windies, particularly, I mean, they seem to be up at the moment. They've got Desi Haynes in as chair of the selectors, which is something that England might do. You know, reappoint the chair of selectors. Be interested to see who the new coach is going to be. I think I'd go with that.
Who would you pick if you had?
I'd get Andy Flower back.
Yeah, I'd go Justin Langer. Langer or Ponting, I'd go for.
But yeah, 1-1. I think there'll be a draw. Might well be.
I'm afraid I can't be a lot more positive because I've got 1-1 wrote down as well. So, yeah, brilliant. Look, it's going to be more competitive, isn't it, in the Ashes? I think. Well, it has to be, doesn't it? What does everyone think in the chat? I know Lee Bayliss has got 2-1 West Indies.
Chris Boyd 3-0.
3-0 England. Blimey. West Indies are very weak at Test cricket, and neither side can make a Test last 5 days, so there'll be result games. Yeah, possibly, but I think I'll be disappointed if we lose the series. And we have to look. Collingwood's. I can't see Collingwood, Neil, being in the frame. Can you, for the new coach? You know, he's obviously in charge for this series. I can't see he's going to be in the running when it comes to picking who the new coach is going to be.
No, I think the thing for me when Langer was announced, I was all for it, to be quite honest. Just seems to have gone very quiet very quickly on that. There was a flurry of almost support for it happening very quickly. Things seem to be moving very quickly, and then it seems to have backed right off again now. So I can't see Collingwood get it now. I'm not sure even whether Collingwood would want it. I don't know, to be quite frank. But yeah, I'd be perfectly happy with Langer coming in. Fresh face, fresh philosophy, something different. So I think that's what's needed. I understand the idea of Andy Flower and maybe, you know, revisiting something, but I just think a new broom's needed massively.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we've done that. So before we go, we'll just touch on the Women's World Cup, which is underway in New Zealand. England a bit unlucky, Ian, to lose against Australia. High scoring game, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Yeah, it was pretty good stuff. I mean, obviously that's Siva getting a century as well. And and there was a really good chance. There was a good catch right at the end there.
Was that the caught and bowled?
Was that caught and bowled was good, and there was a good one right on the edge as well. I think it was it Meg Lanning? I'm not sure, but it's I think they lost the first game of the World Cup in 2017, was it? So it's not all over. I know the format. It's 8 teams, isn't it? They play each other once, and then the top 4 semi-finalists. I think India, South Africa, Australia, and the Windies have all won their first games, but it's early doors. But what an exciting tournament, and great for women's cricket.
The next game is on Tuesday against the West Indies, who I still can't believe. I was watching that game at the end there, Ian, and I messaged you, and they needed 6 runs to win New Zealand, and they had 3 wickets remaining. And was it Dotton come on to bowl? And she hadn't bowled. She hadn't bowled it over in the innings.
No.
And she come on and she took three wickets. There was a run out as well, wasn't there? The last wicket was it was a Keystone Cops moment where it went through to the wicket-keeper. Oh, shall we run for a bye? Oh, no. Oh, sorry. You're out. And
I mean, Dotton's some cricketer, she's great to watch with the bat, but I think it's Dunedin it's the 8th, isn't it? Yeah, so it's it's the same day as the test starts. But I think England will need to win that, or they might be looking down the barrel. So if you lose your first game, but they've got to beat the Windies, so that'll be a good game. Yeah,
look, I think against Australia, it was always backs against the wall against them because obviously what happened over there. But they put up a good show. So hopefully if we can win, I think if Australia are going to be in the final, aren't they? I can't see anybody, Terry, beating the Australian women's if I'm being totally honest. I think they've got all bases covered, bat, bowling, fielding. I think they're the best team by a long shot.
Yeah, I agree. They're a really formidable side. And they've got strength in every single area, and they're so disciplined as well. We were talking about fitness. They look fit on the pitch, and I think the women, not to put competition into it between the men and the women, but I think the women seem to be, from all the teams that I've seen so far, seem to be taking the fitness really, really seriously. Their run-ups are fast, fielding is sharp. I think this is going to be a really, really exciting competition, and I'm looking forward to seeing, what it brings in terms of the final. But I'd stake a tenner on Australia being there. I don't think that would be a massive risk, to be honest with you. But I think really, such a tight game. If we continue to see scores like this throughout the series, I think it's going to be a really, 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 really exciting. And I think also, I think it's worth just mentioning, in terms of how far women's cricket has come, and the experience that the players are reporting having over there is so much better than it has ever been, and actually that women's voices are being listened to in terms of their experience. Things like changing facilities, toilets. I don't how many of you guys have ever experienced what women experience at grounds. Changing in toilets rather than having changing facilities, only having a couple of cubicles, whereas they're reporting saying that actually their experience of the environment, it's set up for women, not a men's ground that's just been sort of tweaked. So I just wanted to kind of flag that, because I just think it's a really, really positive stride forward in terms of what women's cricket can look like.
It's just a real shame because of COVID that they're only letting, I think it's 1,000 in, isn't it, Owen, to every game?
Yeah, they're in bubbles, national bubbles, aren't they, I believe? So you go and watch in your country's bubble. Yeah, it's a real shame, but I was listening to Stumped on the World Service just before this podcast, just before this started, and apparently because they had that zero COVID policy, this is the first wave they've ever had in New Zealand, so they're struggling to deal with it. It's a shame. It is a shame because obviously they've got, being a small country, they've only got small ground, so it really does look as if, from a television perspective, that it's not the growth of the game we'd expect. When we see those big spectacles at sold out Lords, sold out MCG, or SC, I can't remember when it was, but those you look on the television and women's cricket's growing, and now you turn it on and it's sparsely populated. It's a shame. especially for the women involved.
Go on, Terry.
Just on the
Hopefully people understand the context. You know.
Yeah. I was just going to say on the Australian women's team, I think the thing to remember is they are light years ahead of any other country in terms of their progression and development of their women's game. We're getting a girl over for Australia for my daughter's ladies team that she plays in over here, and we've been speaking to their club there, and they have Australian internationals playing at their club. Much as we've talked about the grade system in Australia for the men's team, their women's setup is unbelievably professional at club level, miles ahead. So it's no real surprise that they are light years ahead at the international stage as well.
But I was just looking.
It's funny, isn't it?
Go on, Owen.
I think it's funny. I think it's the one thing I do find a bit of a shame with the women's game is if you look at the top teams and you then strat them against who gets the most funding, it'll be probably the same list. I think that's the only thing that I find, that you got these World Cups, and it's basically you've got, to put it in men's perspective, you've got 3 full member states, which is probably England, Australia, and India, and the rest are like nations in terms of them. Got even so. I think that's the only thing for me lacking in this game is the level playing field in terms of having a domestic setup in their own countries, and I agree that we are way behind.
So we've got New Zealand women playing women right now. Start delayed because of rain, Ian. So we got some rain out there. But just touching on other cricket scores, India beat Sri Lanka by an innings and 222 runs, Ian. Ravi Jadeja starred with bat and ball, didn't he? 175 not out with a bat. And I think he spun his way to 9 in the game. And then obviously going back to Australia, it's the first their first tour of Pakistan, I think, for 24 years. That to me looks like it's nailed on for a draw. I think Pakistan 4-7-6 for 4, and Australia 2-7-1 for 2, and there's 2 days remaining. So I think that would look like a draw there, Ian. I think
you would think so. I mean, the key headline there is cricket in Pakistan. I think that's good. That's good for the world game. Obviously, I believe it's almost like the Australian team are so protected. There's military helicopters, and there's guards, and there's bodyguards, and there's secret agents, and there's all sorts. So obviously they're taking that security seriously because of past events. But yeah, it does look like it's going to be a draw. But I think it's fantastic that Pakistan are hosting Test cricket again.
Yeah, and that is where we'll end the show. Martin's 1 hour 30 minutes. He can wake up now. I think this will be available as a audio if Martin can do his stuff. But hopefully we will be back. I think sometime next weekend. It depends if it goes 5 days in Antigua. So hopefully it will, and hopefully England will win. And the next time on here we can be positive about England, Terry.
Okay.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice if we could win a Test match. But I think it'll be a tight series. Obviously, like you said, I think the Windies will fancy their chances. They're at home, and it would just be good to see some cricket with some sun. And the county season, I think, is only just over a month away, isn't it, Neil, from starting?
Yeah. Everybody will have 13 jumpers on, and beanie hats probably is the new trend at the start of the season for the county scene, isn't it? So, we all look forward to it. We know it's coming, and we can't wait to get started, I don't think.
And I think Darren Stevens will be at Chelmsford sometime early season. I think, Owen, isn't it? Kent are in town. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, we just signed a new bowler from Australia.
Yeah, he's decent. He's top of the Shield. Steckety, I think is his name.
Yeah,
top of the Sheffield
Shield. Doesn't batting problems, but there we go.
Well, we should have a decent bowling attack. We've got him. You've got Jamie Porter. You've got Sam Cook.
Aaron Beard. Yeah. We're familiar bowling. 11 wickets, no problem. 10 wickets.
I was actually quite glad when I was watching the South Africa New Zealand series that Simon Harmer wasn't taking part. I know he was picked, but unbelievably they didn't pick him in there. I'm thinking, why did they actually pick him out there? It's like Matt Parkinson, Ian. We've took him all the way to West Indies. Simon Arman's gone all the way to New Zealand and they didn't pick him. So hopefully when they're over here in the summer, Owen, they won't call on him then and Essex can keep him. Fingers
crossed. Same with Lawrence. Awful West Indies series and we keep him for the summer.
Anyway, on that note, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you to Ian. Thank you to Neil. Thank you to Owen. Thank you to Terry. We have got a Twitter page now at One Talking Cricket. We're nearly at 100 followers. So if you follow us, thank you very much. If you don't, please hit the follow button. Tell all your friends about the podcast. Share it, like it, and all that jazz. But thanks for tuning in, and we will hopefully see you next weekend. Come on, England.